In April 2016, 26-year-old Wang Hao was preparing to discuss marriage with his girlfriend. However, he got into a conflict with his family over the betrothal gift. The wedding, which had seemed certain, fell through. Worse still, both sides fell out with each other. Wang Hao was furious at the time. His family was well off, and he could not understand why his parents were being so stubborn. Their intransigence had ruined everything. In his anger, Wang Hao did not contact his family for several days. To everyone's shock, on the evening of April 5, Wang Hao's parents received a ransom text message saying their son had been kidnapped. After an internal struggle, Wang Hao's parents decided to call the police. When the police first saw the ransom text, they found several things highly unusual. First, why would the kidnappers ask the family to take time off work on their son's behalf? This was something they had never encountered before. Furthermore, the text specifically told the family where the victim's car was parked. Why would the kidnappers do that? Kidnapping was all about getting money, and the car was a valuable asset. Disclosing this location involved details of the kidnapping, so why risk exposing themselves? Third, the kidnappers demanded 1.3 million yuan in ransom. Not only was the sum high, but the number itself was odd. Most people asking for ransom would demand round figures like 1 million yuan or 1.5 million yuan. Why 1.3 million yuan in this case? Additionally, the text stated that the family would be notified of the ransom drop-off location in 3 days. Kidnappers typically wanted to get their money as soon as possible, fearing the victim's family might call the police. So why would they voluntarily delay the process by 3 days? In fact, it was not just the police who were suspicious. Wang Hao's parents also wondered if their son was playing a prank. Given the recent argument over the betrothal gift, they suspected he might be using this ruse to force them to pay up. The ransom text had specifically asked the family to take time off work for Wang Hao. Could it be that Wang Hao planned to go back to work as usual in a few days, hoping the whole incident would just blow over? Wang Hao's parents told the police that their son had a bank card with 1.2 million yuan recently deposited into it. The amount was not far off the ransom demand. Wang Hao's parents ran a business and were financially well off. As an only child, Wang Hao had always been spoiled, with no restrictions placed on his spending. Following the lead in the text, the police went to the restaurant entrance where Wang Hao's car was supposedly parked, and sure enough, the car was there. The police then retrieved a large number of surveillance videos to trace Wang Hao's movements on the day of his disappearance. On that day, Wang Hao had left work with his colleagues as usual, and nothing seemed amiss. After work, Wang Hao would go to the gym for 2 hours, a routine he had stuck to for years. Checking the gym's surveillance footage, everything appeared normal at first. However, the gym had experienced an unexpected power outage at 6 p.m. that day. Wang Hao usually worked out for 2 hours, but on that day, he left an hour early. It was at this point that Shen Cheng, a friend of Wang Hao's, provided the police with a crucial lead. On the day Wang Hao went missing, Shen Cheng had seen Wang Hao's car parked by the side of the road. He had found it odd at the time. The car was parked haphazardly, not pulled over properly to the curb. Shen Cheng had called Wang Hao twice, but Wang Hao did not answer either call. Assuming Wang Hao was busy with something, Shen Cheng had not thought much of it and left. This sighting had occurred just 10 minutes after Wang Hao left the gym, meaning Wang Hao had likely been harmed shortly afterward. Shen Chang was stunned to hear Wang Hao had been kidnapped. Wang Hao was physically fit and muscular. An average person would never have been able to overpower him. No one had expected something like this to happen to him. The police then reviewed surveillance footage from the area around where the car had been spotted. They discovered the vehicle had been driven away at around 6:40 p.m. It arrived at the location specified in the text message sent to Wang Hao's parents at 7:15 p.m. Unfortunately, due to blind spots in the surveillance cameras, the driver's face could not be captured, making it impossible to identify who was behind the wheel. The victim, Wang Hao, was 28 years old, 1.8 meters tall, and weighed 85 kilograms. With his years of regular gym training, he would have been more than a match for one or two ordinary attackers if he had encountered danger. For this reason, the police suspected the crime had been committed by someone Wang Hao knew. Wang Hao's parents owned a restaurant in the local area and were financially well off. As an only child, Wang Hao had always been doted on by his family. Despite running a business, Wang Hao's parents were simple, down-to-earth people with no known enemies or grudges against anyone. Wang Hao was an introverted person with a simple and regular lifestyle. He did not have many friends, but he got along well with all of them. On the day he disappeared, Wang Hao had received only one phone call, and it turned out to be from a telemarketer. The police had initially thought this call might be a vital clue, but it led nowhere. According to Wang Hao's friends, he was a kind and amiable person, and everyone around him thought highly of him. After the incident, Wang Hao's parents, uncle, and other relatives had come to the police station. Once the police had explained the situation to them, they advised the relatives to go home first. However, no one could have predicted that the next morning, Wang Hao's uncle would be nowhere to be found. The previous night, after leaving the police station, the group had gone to Wang Hao's uncle's tea house to sit and talk for a while. But within 15 minutes of arriving, Wang Hao's uncle had urged them to leave in a hurry. The next morning, Wang Hao's aunt had called his uncle Liu Jian, asking him to come over for breakfast, but his phone was not reachable. Upon hearing this, the police immediately sensed something was wrong. Why had he disappeared at this critical juncture? Shortly afterward, the police received an emergency call from a part-time housekeeper, who reported finding a dead body at a client's home. The police rushed to the scene, and it turned out to be the residence of Liu Jian, Wang Hao's uncle. When they arrived, the person was already dead. The police found the murder weapon at the scene. The deceased was none other than the missing Wang Hao. Based on the evidence and traces at the scene, the police determined Liu Jian's home was the crime scene. The police quickly launched an investigation into Liu Jian, only to discover that he had driven away from his home at 10 p.m. on the night of the murder. In other words, he had been in a hurry to get his sister and brother-in-law to leave his tea house so he could flee as soon as possible. In fact, when Wang Hao's parents had first received the ransom text and consulted their relatives about what to do, everyone had advised them to call the police immediately, everyone except Liu Jian. That is, of course, at the time, Liu Jian had argued against calling the police on the grounds that it might prompt the kidnappers to kill Wang Hao. On the surface, this reasoning had seemed reasonable. When the police recovered Wang Hao's car, they found everything inside intact. All of his personal belongings were still there, including the cash in his wallet. Earlier, when Shen Chong had spotted Wang Hao's car by the side of the road, it had actually been parked right next to the residential complex where Liu Jian lived. But no one had paid any attention to this detail at the time. This was because the police generally did not ask for the addresses of every single one of the victim's relatives during an investigation, focusing instead on the addresses of the victim and his parents. Furthermore, Wang Hao's parents had never suspected their own younger brother could be the killer, which was why they had not mentioned this detail to the police. At this point, Liu Jian was like a frightened bird. Since he had fled, he must have guessed that the police knew he was the culprit. The police tracked him down and caught up with his car at 8 p.m. that night. Liu Jian appeared surprisingly calm when apprehended, as if he had long anticipated the arrival of the police. At 3 p.m. on April 5, Liu Jian had made up his mind in his own tea house he was going to target his own nephew, Wang Hao, that very day. Everyone knew Wang Hao had a habit of going to the gym, so Liu Jian went there ahead of time and pretended to run into him by chance. Wang Hao was genuinely surprised by the encounter, truly believing it was a random coincidence. Then Liu Jian made up an excuse, saying his computer had broken down and he did not know how to fix it, asking Wang Hao to come to his house to help out. Liu Jian later confessed that he had actually been plotting this for more than a year. He just had never found the right opportunity until then. From the very beginning, he had decided to target his nephew Wang Hao. Liu Jian was a thin and frail man. He did not have the confidence to kidnap a stranger and overpower them. His only option was someone who knew him well and would let their guard down completely around him. On the day of the incident, Wang Hao followed Liu Jian's request without any guard at all, driving straight to Liu Jian's home. Once there, Wang Hao focused his attention on checking Liu Jian's computer. He never could have imagined that his own blood uncle was so vicious until the moment Liu Jian raised a hammer and struck him from behind. Afraid that Wang Hao would not die immediately, Liu Jian wrapped his entire body in tape after knocking him down. Whether he could get the ransom money or not did not matter. Wang Hao had to be killed. It was truly terrifying, truly cold-blooded and ruthless. Only after murdering Wang Hao did Liu Jian use his phone to send the ransom text message. Wang Hao knew him personally. If Wang Hao had survived, his crime would have been exposed for sure. Before the incident, Liu Jian had no conflicts with his sister's family. In fact, whenever he wanted to start a business, his sister and brother-in-law had lent him money multiple times. The previous year, when Liu Jian wanted to open a tea house, it was his sisters who had helped him out, pooling money to fund his venture. Like in many similar cases, Liu Jian grew up in a large family with several elder sisters. As the youngest son, he had been spoiled and coddled since childhood, getting used to leeching off others. Instead of feeling the slightest bit grateful for his sister's support, he turned into a heartless monster. Watching his sister and brother-in-law thrive in their business while he failed at everything he tried and lost a lot of money filled him with resentment. By then, Liu Jian had given up on making money through his own business endeavors. He thought kidnapping his own nephew would be a much faster and more direct way to get cash. So why did the ransom text say the drop-off location would be given in 3 days? It was simply because Liu Jian himself had not figured out how to collect the money yet, and he wanted those 3 days to plan it out. My God, after plotting for a whole year, this was the best he could come up with. It just goes to show how ruthless, evil, and not the least bit clever he was. Later, when Wang Hao's parents consulted their siblings about what to do, Liu Jian was the only one who opposed calling the police, arguing that it might lead the kidnappers to kill Wang Hao. But he never expected that Wang Hao's parents would still report the case to the police right away. As a family member, Liu Jian had no choice but to accompany his sister and brother-in-law to the police station, but he was absolutely terrified the entire time. He had tried to stop them from reporting the crime because he knew that once the police got involved, he would definitely be exposed and arrested. That was why, after leaving the police station that night, Liu Jian hurried his sister and brother-in-law to go home, then fled as quickly as he could. It was such a tragedy. Their son was already an adult, yet he was suddenly killed by his own blood uncle. It was simply unimaginable and unbearable.